The evening has become quite pleasant here at Marah. God has led me beside these still waters. He is restoring my soul. I scan the horizon and observe the desert from a somewhat detached viewpoint. It takes on a certain beauty of its own in the stages of the sunset, as the plains turn to burnt sienna and charcoal gray shadow. The mountaintop in the distance remains in light. In contrast to the desert floor, the mountain takes on a golden glow. Heat waves, still emanating from the ground, cause the mountain to move, shimmering and dancing in the evening light. I guess even in his silence, God can move a mountain. If God ever invites me to go to a mountaintop, remind me to be sure to go. Mountaintops are certainly a part of the history of faith. On Mount Ararat, Noah and his family come to rest in the ark at the end of a year of flooding. On Mount Moriah, Abraham offers his son Isaac as a sacrifice to the Lord, and Isaac is spared by a ram. On Mount Sinai, Moses has an experience talking with God through a burning bush. Later on that same mountain, Moses and the leaders of Israel are called partway up the mountain where they eat with God, and yet they do not die. Moses is called farther up on that mountain where he receives the law written by the hand of God on stone tablets. On Mount Carmel, Elijah has a showdown with the prophets of Baal, and God shows up in a big way. Of course, Mount Zion is the location for the city of Jerusalem and for its temple. On a mountain in Galilee, Jesus delivers his most famous sermon. On a mountain, Jesus spends the night in prayer before calling the 12 to himself and commissioning them as disciples. From the Mount of Olives, Jesus ascends into the clouds as he blesses his followers and commissions them to go and make disciples. No wonder they call them mountaintop experiences. But there is one experience on a mountain that perhaps tops them all. Peter is part of the inmost circle and sees things that the others do not see. The raising of Jairus' daughter, the empty tomb, Jesus' agony in the garden, his proceedings before Caiaphas. But Peter may be most marked by the moment on Mount Tabor where he sees Jesus transfigured. The event is rather odd, and many of the details are mysterious. Jesus predicts his death very plainly, and he finishes his revelation with puzzling words that impact the disciples. They would surely see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom with power before some of them would taste death. That declaration sets those boys to thinking. It is one of those moments by which we set our calendars. And so Peter notices that it was just a week later something happens that just might be the fulfillment of Jesus' strange prophecy. They go up on a high mountain, and Jesus' appearance changes. His face shines like the sun, his clothes dazzling white. Moses and Elijah appear and speak of his coming death. The Father's voice reverberates from the cloud. Peter ignorantly mumbles something about tents, perhaps thinking they were now going to dwell here in his power and kingdom. Then it's over, and Jesus says not to mention it until he has risen from the dead. They ask about Elijah coming first, and Jesus says he has already come. That moment, that event, freeze in time and become one of Peter's anchors of faith. He begins his second letter with these words: Jesus received honor and glory when God's glorious, majestic voice called down from heaven, "This is my beloved Son, I am fully pleased with him." We ourselves heard the voice when we were with him on the holy mountain. Because of that, we have even greater confidence. I've had some mountaintop moments in my life that shore up my faith and give me confidence to carry on in the valley, even in the midst of self-doubt. In those moments, I hear from God, have an encounter with the divine, and I think I will never doubt again. Those moments are powerful and personal to me. I've only experienced this particular event of the Transfiguration indirectly, but Peter is there. He sees it, he hears it, and it gives him what he calls even greater confidence. Confidence to preach on the day of Pentecost. Confidence when he's in prison. Confidence when feeding the sheep of Jesus. Confidence when he is crucified for being his follower. Lord Jesus, call me up higher. Let me see your glory. When I get there, let me build a tent for you and stay in your presence. I want to stay there because coming down from the mountain seems to cause a lot of problems. Noah comes down from Mount Ararat, plants a vineyard, and gets drunk. Abraham lies about his wife Sarah, saying she is his sister. Moses descends with the stone tablets, sees the corruption of the people, and angrily breaks the tablets. After Elijah experiences revival on Mount Carmel, he flees to the wilderness where he wants to die. Below Mount Zion is Gehenna, where they burn garbage, and Jesus chooses that word to describe hell. The valley to the east of the Mount of Olives is the wilderness, where Jesus is tempted. I would rather live on the mountain, and there will come a day when I'll be able to do just that. The New Jerusalem comes down to rest on Mount Zion, and there are no more tears or sorrow or crying, for the former things have passed away, and God dwells with his people forever. But this is not that day. Today, God calls me to the valley. That's where the people are. Living, struggling, dying, unaware that there is a mountain.